Happy Saturday to you. I hope you are having an amazing Saturday and an amazing weekend so far. My name is Don Terrell, and I want to welcome you to another amazing episode of The Color of Motion, where I like to say, hey, stories come in all shades, and I highlight people of color and diverse backgrounds in the industry of motion graphics, animation, visual effects, cartoons, and comics. And I feel like with this episode, I got a lot of that covered. So looking forward to that. But you know the drill. Make sure you hop into the comments, say, hey, where you're tuning in from, so I can give you a shout out that you so richly deserve. Also, make sure that you hop on over to the Facebook group community. Join us, facebook.com/groups/The Color of Motion. Having a lot of fun over there, sharing industry news, and definitely don't want you to miss out on anything for sure. Also, want to give a big shout out to today's sponsor of the show, Restream. They help keep us streaming on all our social platforms here. And if you are a live streamer that streams out to multiple platforms, they are definitely a great software to use. Like I said, we stream live every Saturday afternoon to the YouTube channel, LinkedIn, the Facebook group, and the website for the show, and they definitely help keep us going. But I always kind of highly encourage everybody to hop on over to the YouTube channel, subscribe, hit the bell notification, get plugged in, comment, that helps the algorithm for sure. And there you're able to check out all the other past great guests we've had on the show. Yeah, definitely want to see you as part of the community for sure. Also, you can connect with me on all my social channels right here. Definitely want to hear from you. Let me know what you think of the show, who you may want me to try and get on, and just, all around feedback that helps me to make the show the best that I can possibly make it. So definitely enjoy hearing from the viewers. So for sure, connect with me here. Okay, yeah, what else? Oh, also, the store is open, so make sure that you hop on over to the store, pick you up some swag items. We have some great hoodies, t-shirts, mugs, constantly putting new things in the store. And my goal is to see as many people in the Color of Motion gear as I can possibly see. So make sure you stop on by there, colorofmotion.net/swag, and pick you up something. Only thing I ask is if you do, make sure you snap a picture of yourself, send it to me so we can share it on the show, share it on the social channels, and give you some props there for sure. Like I said, I am so excited about this episode, and this brother can attest to it when he comes on. I've been trying to get him on for a while, but finally got him on. So I'm definitely looking forward to sitting down and talking with him and having a great time. So without further ado, we're going to get this show on the road and have a great conversation. What do you say? Yes, yes, yes. We are ready to get this started. Like I said, I know you are going to enjoy this because I know I am for sure. So, without further ado, my next guest was born in Chicago, raised in Minnesota, Boston, and New Jersey, and graduated from the prestigious Howard University, where he majored in microbiology. He was inspired by Spike Lee's She's Gotta Have It movie, and from that moment on, knew what he wanted to do. He is a screenwriter, producer, actor, and a graphic novel creator who has over 20 years' experience in the film industry. After graduating Howard University with a degree in microbiology, he came to Hollywood where he acted in several films, including Alien Nation, The Mask, Congo, Batman Forever, Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes, The Hulk, and Men in Black 2. He also co-created and wrote the original screenplay to the successful Underworld franchise, which I'm sure you'll recognize him from, which was his first produced writing credit. He was also a co-producer on the film series and played the character RAZE. He has just completed production on his latest film from a screenplay he wrote, I, Frankenstein, produced by Lakeshore Entertainment. It was based on his original graphic novel. In addition, he's a prolific writer in the comic book graphic novel world, where he has worked for both Marvel and DC Comics, having written such characters as Spider-Man, Blade, Iron Man, Batman, Superman, The Phantom, and critically acclaimed Adam, Legend of the Blue Marvel for Marvel, which he created. He has established an independent, creator-owned comic book graphic novel company called Darkstorm Studios. Under this imprint, he has created ZMD, Zombies of Mass Destruction, I, Frankenstein, Monstroids, Sharika, Skull and Guns, The Gray Men, Alias Rex, and Battlesphere, as well as Astounding Comics, which produces all-age titles such as Valkyries, Yuma, Crypto Kids, Guardian Heroes, The Atoms Family, The Toy Box, Mighty Girls, The Vindicators, and the Hammer Kid. And as you can tell, he has an extensive film credit. Everybody, please help me welcome my very special guest and friend, Mr. Kevin Grevioux. Kevin, super excited. I almost ran out of breath just reading that.
Yeah, I hear you, man. It's good to be here. It's good to be here.
Oh, and as you can tell, he has a rich voice. I feel like I'm talking falsetto as well, too.
Oh, man, nah.
But I am super excited to get you on, Kevin. You know, like I said, we've been going back and forth for a little bit, but knew I had to get you on because, like I said, you have such a breadth of work that you do. And like I said, initially, you know, I just thought you were an actor until I started, like I said, really following your content and saw you did a lot of comic book stuff and comic book writing. So I was like, wow, he's really into comics as well. And it seems like, you know, you have a real depth of knowledge in, obviously you've been into comics for a long time.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I started when I got to the comics game late as a hobby. I started collecting or reading around, 12, you know.
Yeah.
And from there, you know, it's just been a kind of like a lifelong, you know, passion, love affair, whatever you want to call it, as far as the medium, you know.
Yeah.
But like I said, I wasn't always into comics. I was originally a monster kid, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Love monsters of all shapes, sizes, um, you know, morphologies, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
You know, I got into model building, things like that. And so, you know, I was, you know, picking my way through. as most boys doing did in the 70s. And then I happened upon comic books, and I was hooked.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I
Yeah,
have to ask you
yeah,
because I am always fascinated just how people's journeys take them. Where people's journeys they come from. You
right,
got your degree in microbiology.
yeah.
What was it? I mean, that initially, caused you to go to get that degree. Were you interested in science? Microbiology. What was the reasoning for getting into microbiology and getting your degree there?
Well, I was always science was my best subject, and I really wasn't going to major in anything else. But I think a lot of that came from my first love, which was actually science fiction.
Okay.
So, how do you do science fiction as a career? Really, you can't growing up when I grew up. So, the best thing to do was to sublimate it into something that's more socially acceptable. So that was real science.
Yeah.
The question was whether or not I want to be a doctor or go into research. Med school ultimately was not for me.
Yeah.
But scientific research, biological scientific research or genetic research, that's where it was for me. But what wound up happening is that I think my senior year, Spike Lee came out with "She's Gotta Have It,"
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I was like, okay, wait a minute now. I didn't even know brothers could direct films. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I
And
think he opened his eye, everybody's eyes when
yeah,
that
yeah,
came
yeah,
out.
yeah. And the thing about it is that there wasn't even anyone in school that I knew who was majoring in film. You know what I'm
Really.
saying?
So were you before? Were you before uh, Chadwick?
Oh, most definitely.
Way
Yeah,
before Chadwick. Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I came into Howard in '81, and I think he came in the '90s.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. So I was long gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but yeah, man.
So what
So
was
what
it about
happened?
Howard that I mean? Because like I said, Howard's a prestigious, black university. Obviously, a lot of successful people have come out of Howard. What was your kind of initial reasoning? Was it because of the microbiology course or
No,
degree?
yeah,
Or
yeah, yeah. I mean, Howard wasn't known for its scientific prowess, necessarily. But what Howard was is a conservatory. So, if you look at the history of our country through Jim Crow,
yeah,
there were a lot of things we could not do. They would not allow us to do, at least not in their institutions.
yeah,
But what you could do, Howard was the place where you could go, where you could become anything you wanted to be. So, if they didn't accept blacks in like Juilliard, things like that, where you could go to Howard to do what they did. you know they wouldn't let blacks go and practice medicine in their hospital, but you could go to Howard, become a doctor and work at Howard's hospital, things like that.
yeah.
So that's what Howard was, but that's not what led me to Howard. Like I said, growing up in the 70s, we would always, my parents would subscribe to Ebony and Jet magazine, and Howard was always in Ebony and Jet magazine
Yeah.
for some reason or another. Someone was donating money, someone went there. We have a lot of notable alums. Donnie Hathaway,
Yeah.
Roberta Flack,
Yeah.
uh, Kwame Ture, who used to be Stokely Carmichael,
Yeah.
Felicia and Rashad, Debbie Allen.
Yeah.
I mean, the list is really endless. You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
And so, all that together, made Howard stand out in my eyes. And I was already acclimated to black schools. They didn't have the term HBCU.
Yeah.
Back then, they were just known as black schools. And my father, he went to Morgan State. So,
Okay. Okay.
yeah, so, I didn't want to go there, but Howard is where I could carve my own path. And that's why I
Yeah.
chose the university.
Yeah. 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 Well, kind of on that vein, what do you feel like how Howard gave you that you coming out of Howard because I hear a lot of different experiences on just the HBCU experience and what you get out of it. What did it kind of give you as you were going through it? Was it just being around, um, I guess, in higher education around a lot of other blacks? Because I sometimes think, I kind of missed out on maybe that, when I went to college type of thing. What was it for you that, really kind of Howard gave you?
You know what? It's hard to really say. We grew up in, white neighborhoods all our lives, be it in Minnesota, Boston, New Jersey. And so I really never had that, you know, total immersive interaction
Yeah,
where, you have, just a black environment.
yeah,
And, given that my father went to an HBCU, I wanted, to try that, that same thing. And, to me, it was great, you know,
yeah,
um, I guess seeing that many black PhDs, in science, I had professors who actually wrote the books that we had to, buy,
yeah,
you know, for class,
yeah,
things like that. I don't want to, become too crass here, but seeing the amount of just beautiful,
yeah,
black people and black women,
yeah,
in one place. And I will tell you that the friendships that you get from going to an HBCU,
yeah,
you know, are like no other. And that's
yeah.
not to say that no one else experiences that. I'm just saying the HBCU experience, I feel, is a bit different,
It
especially with,
is.
the Black Greek life, things
Yeah,
like that. Um, just being immersed in your culture, but at the same time learning about the world
yeah,
outside of that. You see what
yeah,
I'm saying?
yeah.
And I don't think there's anything like it. So,
No, I agree. Like I said, um, I pretty much, grew up in a, black neighborhood, literally in front of the tracks that
right.
separated you from the white neighborhood. But, my higher education, I went to an art school that was pretty much integrated. But like you said, it's a different. I went to uh, Grambling and Southern's, homecoming game. And when I walked into the Superdome, it was just, like I said, I've never experienced anything like that where you just see
Yeah.
a sea of black people there, all together, all one, enjoying event. It is a different, I think, a different experience for sure. How do you feel like, because you are, so successful in film, in comics, and what you're doing? How do you feel towards, your degree now? I mean, you spent time getting a microbiology degree. I'm not sure how much you utilize it in
Yeah.
what you're doing now, but
Well, I will tell you, there really is no correlation between, you know, an educational degree and success in the creative fields.
yeah,
You really don't need a degree to do what I'm doing and what I've done. Some people might beg to differ, but I beg to differ. you know, none of what we do is brain surgery,
yeah,
regardless of what some people think now. Of course, there are auteurs, people who are, multi-talented on, like a fourth dimensional level,
yeah,
that it is, phenomenal, to see what they turn out
yeah,
or put out or whatever. But I have no. I mean, I might have peripheral regrets.
yeah,
Maybe if I had majored in film, when I first got to Howard, but who knew?
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
and I mean, the way I look at it, there's this Bible verse, Romans 8:28. All things work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to His purpose.
Yeah.
So that means there are no accidents. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? So I was put on that path for a reason.
Yeah.
By God, and I just feel blessed that I've been able to do something in the industry.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, when you saw She's Gotta Have It, and you knew right there what your direction was, were you thinking actor or were you thinking directing?
No, I was thinking writing. I
Writing.
wasn't. Yeah. I did not want to be in front of the camera at all. That was the furthest thing from my mind. And directing, yes, but it was really writing. Creating. That's what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I didn't know any writers. Never heard of any writers. Even growing up a science fiction and monster fan,
Yeah.
when it came to what they were putting out,
Yeah.
you always heard about the actor and director, and that was fine with me.
Yeah.
But my thing was who created,
Yeah.
these characters, these films, who wrote them, who was there in the creative trenches. And that's what I liked. And that's what I was drawn to. It wasn't the fame nor fortune, being in front of the camera, things of that nature.
Well, I mean, we kind of seem to, I think we're kind of around the same age and grew up through the same era. What were kind of some of the shows that, you enjoyed watching, even though, like I said, you didn't see a lot of characters that looked like us on TV or anything like that. But what were some of the things that, like I said, you liked watching TV show wise?
You know what, man? I guess I liked all of the, if we're talking Saturday morning cartoons, I'll start there.
Yeah.
It was Johnny Quest.
Oh, yeah.
Space Ghost, Mighty Mightor, Birdman, Young Samson,
Yeah.
Things like that. The Fantastic Four, the cartoon that came out in the 60s, and the Spider-Man TV show
Yeah.
that came out of the 60s too, as well as the other, Marvel, comics, cartoons, and then Filmation, they handled DC, Superman, Aquaman, I love those shows. I used to watch the Super Friends, things like that, As far as live action, I guess, the Batman TV show, Lost in Space.
Yeah, that was a big one for me.
As I got older. As I got older, it was the Twilight Zone, Kolchak, the Night Stalker.
Night Stalker, yeah.
So, those things. And, of course, when we got to Boston, I discovered Speed Racer and Kim of the White Lion and Gigantor and Ultraman, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm having flashbacks now.
So yeah, man, I was into all that.
Oh man. So what was it that got you? Because like I said, your film credits just as an actor is pretty prolific. What was it that got you in front of the camera if your illusions weren't necessarily to be?
You know what, dude? What wound up happening, I got to LA and I was 28 years old, and I knew a cat who was working as a casting director, and he had just casted a Michael Jackson video, Remember the Times.
Yeah.
That was directed by John Singleton, and he was like, "Hey, you'd be good as one of these Egyptian guards." So I was like, "Bet, I'll do it. I need to make some money."
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. And a lot of people on the set liked my voice. Michael Jackson said he liked my voice. John Singleton and I, struck up a friendship, that lasted until he sadly passed.
Yeah.
And, it made me think that, well, there may be something to this to supplement my income.
Yeah.
While I try to make it as a writer.
Yeah.
So, I started doing extra work as a way to get in. and I tried to approach things a little differently. You know, I'm not necessarily a conventional guy with who thinks conventionally. You know, I I've always said that I am practically wrong in a lot of things that I do or think, but functionally right. You know, so my trajectory might not go into straight upward, ascent, but might, you know,
Yeah.
zag,
Yeah.
do all this stuff,
Yeah.
and but it works for me. And so I just kept doing that until such a time as I, you know, could figure out this whole business. Because, like I said, I didn't know anyone,
Yeah.
and so the way I looked at it, extra work, as quote unquote lowly as it might be considered,
Yeah.
or might be in actuality. Um, I think if you're smart or if you think, it can be the best free film school that you
Mm.
can ever attend. You see
Yeah.
what I'm
Yeah.
And all you have to do is be observant
Yeah.
and keep your mouth shut,
Yeah.
and I think it'll lead you to places. And so I wound up meeting the director of our Underworld film,
Yeah. Yeah.
on set. I was an extra on a movie called Stargate.
Yeah.
And,
Stargate. Yeah.
yeah. And, he was a prop assistant. And, he just took a liking to me. We started talking, saw that we liked similar things. And the rest is history. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. That's why I tell people, it's all about the relationships and who you meet. You never know where you may meet them at the time you meet them and what
Yeah.
they've got going on. And if you're, like you said, observant and have a great personality, it carries a long, long way. So, when as you were writing, were you writing for film, or were you writing for comics, or were you just writing stories and you just wasn't sure how it was going to play out as far as the medium that it was going to get told in?
Hmm. That's a rough one because, I think while I was still in DC, I submitted a couple of story ideas to Marvel, and of course they got rejected,
Yeah.
you and but then I said, okay, I guess that's not going to work, and so I just started writing screenplays, um, Bibles,
Yeah.
things of that nature. And I thought, maybe television pilots as best I could, not knowing much, and picking my way through it, and until something hit. And so, you know, um, in fact, one of the things that happened is that in meeting John Singleton, I was able to actually write a spec script for the Black Panther movie
Oh
that
wow.
he was going to be directing.
Yeah, I
You know,
know.
at
I
the time,
read that.
yeah. And so, that was cool, and that allowed me. It got to the top, of the head guy at Island Pictures, and so it's one of those things where you just have to figure it out, especially if you don't know anyone. I think it's much easier
Yeah.
now than it was then. But, when I was coming up, there weren't many brothers doing science fiction. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
And, the thought was always, well, why aren't you doing more hood movies or movies about the culture or whatever? Well, that's all fine and well. But,
Yeah.
I like what I like, which was
Yeah.
science fiction and horror,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's what I stuck to.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. Because you know the narrative. If we weren't, there wasn't anybody really doing it, and the ones that were in it, we were usually killed off first in
Oh,
horror movies. And I don't think it was really, I don't know, maybe before then, but I don't think people really kind of started noticing it until, or thinking differently about it until Jordan Peele kind of wrote Get Out and started,
Well, I think it happened, before then.
before then,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I think it happened before then. Um, But I think that because he did what he did, I think that, you know, caused executives to be less myopic. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, so it's good that he was able to do what he did and, you know, kind of open things up, you know. But,
Yeah.
you know, him, like myself and a lot of other people, we stand on the shoulders of giants,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
There were a lot of them out
and,
there.
you know, and if we've seen further than other men, it's because of that reason and that reason alone. So,
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. Well, I mean, obviously, you know, your thought wasn't necessarily to, I guess, make acting as your sole career, but do you feel like because of your distinctive voice, because of your build, that put you for certain roles, like you said, you know, John Singleton reached out to you because
yeah,
of
yeah, yeah, yeah.
the people,
Well, most
the
definitely.
Egyptian
Most
Egyptians.
definitely because, you know, when you're a bigger guy, you know, like I was, especially back then, you know,
Yeah,
I tried to figure out, okay, well, how do I really make this thing work? Because, you know, you're going to go up against all the big guys, you know, in Hollywood who are trying to do the same thing.
yeah,
So the question is, how do you differentiate yourself? You know, I had a distinctive voice, but, you know, big, big deal, you know, because
yeah,
anyone can make their voice heavy. I mean, wrestlers do it all the time,
yeah,
you know, but then there's also trying to maneuver how to get on sets if you don't get a particular part that you want. Like I remember on more than one occasion, if I didn't get the part that I went out for,
yeah,
excuse me,
yeah,
if I did not get the part that I went out for, I would simply go through the stunt department, you know, and get a job as a stunt man
yeah.
on the
They
movie.
look at you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's where the director and the producers see you and say, hey, you know, I like the way that guy sounds. I like his voice or I like his build. Tell him to come over here. You
Yeah,
know what I'm saying?
yeah,
And then the next thing you know, you're getting a part.
yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I'm saying? And it's better than the one you went out for, you know, off times. You know, because a lot of times, you know, you get some of these parts to like one line, one day.
yeah, yeah,
Stunt man, they might keep you on, you know, for a couple of weeks, if not the
yeah,
whole show. So that was also another way I figured out how to survive, you know, until such a time as my writing caught on.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, and it's. I have to ask because I think he was the one that kind of turned me on to you, um, Scott Kristen Sava.
Yeah, yeah,
And, you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
he's
yeah.
just, yeah, you know, reach out to Kevin. How did you two meet and connect? And for those that don't know, um, Scott did an amazing animation that was. I'm not sure if it's still. Yeah, it's still on Netflix. You can still look it up on
Yeah,
Netflix
yeah,
called
yeah.
Animal Crackers. But a super amazing artist outside of just a writer and stuff. But how did you two kind of connect?
Okay, so you threw me for a loop because now I'm trying to remember. Um,
I mean, I know you got a long history there, and you meet a lot of people, for sure.
yeah. Um, okay. So I met him. Okay, I was working with an artist, you know, to try to develop some comic book properties.
Yeah,
And he had a friend who was trying to be a filmmaker who wanted to meet me. And that friend was friends with Scott. And so he says, hey, you know, why don't you bring him over? Blah, blah, blah. They did. We had lunch, and that's how we met. And we've
gotcha.
been friends ever since. And so
Gotcha.
that was probably in 2003.
Yeah,
Yeah, 2003. Yeah. And so we've been friends ever since. Yeah.
nice, nice. I want to dive, like I said, a little into your, you know, comic IPs and your graphic novel kind of space.
Yeah.
Um, for you, um, was your need to, and you've done work for Marvel and DC, but were you thinking in eventuality going the indie route and putting, kind of getting behind your own IP and ideas and stories?
Yeah. My first foray into the comic book industry was doing, um, my own IPs through a small indie publisher, you know, in which Darkstorm was an imprint. And so, and Astounding Studios as well. And so that's the route I went first. Then Marvel came calling, and
Mm,
that's when I was in DC subsequently. And that's when I began doing, a little bit of work for them, you know.
yeah, yeah,
So, that was, a dream come true, you know. Um, but it was cool. I liked it. It raises your profile, so to speak, which, can in turn help your independent IPs get off the
yeah,
ground, what have you,
yeah,
and so that's important.
yeah. And I think obviously, with the climate now, and I think the fact that Marvel just kind of took it to a whole different level. What are your kind of thoughts on what you're seeing as far as how they're taking the comics and transitioning them into movies? And I get where you have to kind of change things up just so that it translates movie wise. But
Yeah.
do you find the majority of studios or majority of ones that are making these comic superhero movies are not kind of following the basic comic?
That's kind of hard to say. That's a tough question. It's a broad question too, because of course you're going to need to make some adjustments. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Can you really have like with Iron Man? Can you really have Tony Stark be a munitions manufacturer and helping the war machine in Vietnam? No, you got to change that up. You
yeah,
know, so but I think their first 10 years, I thought they did an excellent job. You know, um, there are maybe a few things I would have changed or tweaked or whatever, but I thought they did an excellent job. I think the problem that people have had lately is that there's such a glut of these movies now
yeah,
that they're no longer special,
yeah,
and then they become formulaic and therefore boring, or extremely predictable,
yeah, yeah,
and you know, and then they start to pander, and that's an issue,
yeah,
that
yeah,
I've often had. But it is what it is, because when it comes down to it, as much as we as fans might love these characters or movies or IPs, to the executives, their product, and
yeah,
that's all they are.
yeah. It's
They're,
all about dollars.
yeah, their product. I mean, to them, there's no difference between the Fantastic Four and Coca Cola.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah. No, it comes down to dollars for sure,
Exactly.
and whether or not they feel like it can make movies. Because trust me, they
Right.
definitely have thrown some dollars at some that they couldn't have. Are you encouraged now more, that you're starting to see more independent creators that are coming up with more original ideas and original characters, and they don't even necessarily have to be in superhero vein, but
Right.
just like I said, I've connected with a lot of
Right.
black artists that are doing
Oh
horror
yeah. Yeah.
comics.
I mean, definitely. Yeah, exactly. I look at some of the guys out there now, like, Rodney Barnes,
Yeah,
John Jennings, Evan Dexter Park. You have a lot of these guys doing some great things. And, you can only hope to be, around them when their stars, starts to shine even more,
yeah, yeah,
so they're doing some amazing things. So yeah,
yeah,
I'm encouraged for sure.
yeah. And are you a big proponent of owning your own IP
Oh,
as
of
opposed
course.
to
Yeah,
to,
yeah,
to
yeah. That goes without saying. That
because
goes
you got
without
a lot
saying.
of people that are just and I have this conversation. I say, you don't need to wait, because most artists, animators, whatever it is, they're always seem to be scrambling to get into the big studio, whether it's Marvel, DC, Disney, Pixar, as opposed to coming up with their own idea and promoting their own idea and building on that IP.
Yeah, but you have to understand though. That's a very simplistic way of looking at it, and I'll tell you why. A lot of us have loved these characters since we were kids.
Yeah,
So to get a chance to work on them, is a dream come true. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah,
And those things are hard to abandon, you
yeah,
know, because look, we've all been creating, drawing, writing since we were kids, but to work on the Hulk, or Batman or the X-Men, you know what I'm saying? It's
yeah,
like, how often, do those opportunities come along? And then there's the money associated with working,
yeah,
for those studios or on those characters. And then there is the public prestige of working, for Marvel or DC, so forth and so on.
yeah,
And I get it. I get it. At the same time, I think that creators need to understand once you've scratched that itch, get out, okay? Or at the very least, start doing your own thing because you're not going to be able to work there forever.
yeah,
Only a few people have been able to manage that. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
And, no brothers. So the thing is, look, do what you can to get in. If it doesn't work, fine. Do your own thing. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
that's the goal.
yeah, yeah, yeah. For everybody, just jumping in. As you can tell, we are having an amazing conversation with my friend Kevin Grevioux, super talented writer, director, producer, comic book and graphic novel writer. Just having a fun conversation. Um, how difficult? Because, like you said, you did just get off doing directing King of Killers, the movie you did. Is it hard to direct yourself when you're doing a movie that you're directing and you're also acting in it? I mean, some
Okay,
can do it.
so here's what I can do. As you know, we're in the middle of a strike.
Oh, 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 oh,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. I forgot about
okay,
that.
so I can't talk about my upcoming film projects. However, I can answer your question um, in a general sense.
Yeah,
So it is not hard to direct yourself. I mean, you work from storyboards and a shot list. You know what I'm saying? And of course, I'm not in every scene.
yeah,
So it's like I can, when I'm not in the scene, I call it, But when I am, I let the AD call it, and and I go behind the monitor and see if I like what it,
yeah,
what it looks like, and that's it. So once again, man, it's taxing, but it's not brain surgery. It's not. One of the things I will tell you that I experienced. I don't remember exactly what we were talking about, but I remember I was talking with one of the producers, and he just started, laughing and chuckling, patted me on the shoulder, and walked upstairs, to get ready for the next shot. And I'm thinking to myself, I said, you know what? How did I get here? Did things have to be so hard in order to get here? Because this seems relatively easy working with this producer. I'm
yeah,
having a good time. And, you come to the realization that the process that some people put you through, you know, just throw everything off. And it's really about finding the right people to work with. in order to get something done. And when things are difficult, oftentimes it's because you're not working with the right people. I mean, things do happen,
Yeah.
during the natural course of things. I mean, there are creative differences, for instance, but you have to learn how to work with people.
Yeah.
And I just know from doing this a long time that some people just can't work with,
Yeah.
and those are the people you need to stay away from.
Yeah. Yeah. Nah,
Yes.
it's I'm sure it's a difficult thing, like you said, and you hear, some horror stories of actors or directors that are just really hard to work with or really take you through a lot of stuff. Um, what what was your process, and what was your core reason for starting Darkstorm Comics?
Because I needed a holding company for my IPs. Um, one of the things that happened with Underworld,
Yeah.
I didn't own anything. I didn't make it an IP, before,
Yeah. Beforehand.
I sold it and brought all these other people in. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And, the idea, I've said this other places, it really didn't begin with me. I came up with the idea, but the director, it happened because of him.
Yeah.
He was trying to find his first project to direct, film wise. And the agency he was with was just sending him terrible material.
Yeah.
And so Dimension Films, they said, hey, we want to do a werewolf movie because Blade had done so well for the vampire genre.
Yeah.
So when he had that meeting, he called me and he says, well, what do you think? And I said, well, not much. And the reason I said that though is because, generally speaking, werewolf movies, werewolves themselves as creatures, monsters, whatever you call it, they're not sexy, and I don't mean that in a sexual kind of way. What I
Yeah.
mean is that they're just not really haven't been done necessarily cool. I mean, if you look at it,
Yeah.
ripped clothes, fangs,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, because of limitations of technology, the hair is matted a lot of times. They just, so I was telling him, we have to find a way to do it in a way that's going to make them look cool. And, at the time, I think there were only 2 or 3 werewolf movies to speak of that were any good,
Yeah.
and everyone knows what they are, The Howling,
Yeah.
which is the first
Hollywood
time I
good.
saw,
Yeah.
yeah, which was the first time I saw a bipedal snout nose werewolf,
Yeah.
American Werewolf in London,
Yeah. Yeah.
and let's face it, Lon Chaney's, the Wolfman from the
Yeah.
1940s.
Yeah.
And so I said, let me see what I can do with this. And I came up with an idea that he liked, but then I came up with another idea. And, where I basically said to him, let's do a Romeo and Juliet story. But instead of Montagues and Capulets, we have werewolves on one side, but vampires on the other, and make it this surrealistic interracial love story against the backdrop of a 600-year-old race war. And he didn't like the idea,
Hmm.
but here we are.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
After
Here
three movies.
here we are. Now, I hope that answered your question. I even forgot
No,
what
it
you asked.
did. It did. As far as your reason and really kind of controlling your own IP, and having a holding company
Yeah, exactly. And the
that
thing
allows
is,
you to do that. Yeah.
yeah, I just did not even think of it at the time, and
Yeah.
then, the creative infrastructure wasn't necessarily there for me to do that then with the limited, number of people that I knew, you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that's how it went. And
Um.
so,
Yeah. And it's interesting. And I guess, like I said, you can answer it or not answer it, but if you can answer it in kind of your own way. But I've been finding it interesting, and just wondering how you navigate through Hollywood and getting whatever your idea and creatives idea out there, and still feel like you're you, and don't sacrifice who you are. Like I said, lately we've been hearing a lot of, like I said, actors, and it got me to thinking because, like I said, you know, Dave Chappelle is one of the big ones out now talking about how just mental health and how the pressures are of, obviously it's dollars, bottom line dollars of money.
Right.
And how do you keep yourself centered in what you're doing and what you're trying to do and the things you're trying to create when you got all these people trying to kind of distort it or some kind of way? For you, how do you keep yourself centered in the things that you want to create, but you still have to navigate through this industry that it can be a bit much on a person?
Well, you know what? I mean, there's no easy way to answer that. I mean, number one, you got to work with good people. You know, one of the things I have found in this industry is that it can be hard to keep friends, because everyone is at a certain level of competition. So if you're going to, run up against a cat who's going to compete with you all the time, well, you don't need to be working with them or around them. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah,
Like, I can't tell you how many friends I've lost because of Underworld, you know.
really.
Yeah, just by virtue of the fact that I was able to break through and get something made.
Hmm.
And, like I didn't go to film school, not really.
Yeah,
When
yeah,
I was in grad school, I took some television and film courses, but I didn't even complete them
yeah,
because when I made up my mind what I wanted to do, I was like, hey, look, I withdrew, and it was just all about trying to get to LA and trying to figure this thing out. But, there are people who think that, okay, you're a big guy, you lack the mental acuity, to
yeah,
really do anything of an intellectual nature, let alone creative.
yeah,
So, you run into stuff like that,
yeah,
and so it can be difficult. So I think, you keep a small group of close knit friends, and that's really all you need. It's hard to be in an environment where, everyone is a different level of acquaintance. You know what I'm saying? And that's
yeah,
it. And you don't know, who's who half the time,
yeah, yeah,
And that's
yeah,
just the way, I found it.
yeah, yeah. So to this point, what's been kind of the best piece of advice that somebody's given you that's really helped to serve you through your career so far?
Um, I guess, you don't give up, because if you give up, you get nothing, you know. And, then you look back and you look at all the time you've wasted. Um, I remember when I first got out here, I was having a rough time. And a boy of mine from Howard,
Yeah,
uh, he basically assessed, what I was telling him. And he was like, eh, he said, your situation is doable. The question is, do you want to do it?
yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
And once he said that, I was like, well, dang, you know, that makes sense. Am I willing to do what's necessary in order to get to the next level
yeah,
or get past the people I've known before who have not been able to break through?
yeah,
And that can be the scary part, because look, I'm set the world on fire. And it's like, you're just trying to survive and get things made. You know, there's no guarantee you're going to become a Jordan Peele.
yeah, yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Or a Quentin Tarantino or a Michael Bay
yeah,
or Matt Reeves. You don't know that,
yeah,
But what you do want to do is be able to survive, put food on the table, and notch that resume. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
With some quality stuff that people can look at and say, yeah, that was good. I like that. You
Yeah.
know, because at the end of the day, that's all you kind of really want. You don't want to go home with your tail between your legs, everyone's saying that you weren't going to make it in the first place. And that becomes a self fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
And, you know, boom, there you are, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And that can happen. And I've seen a lot of guys, I've seen it happen to a lot of, you know, writers,
Yeah. Yeah.
who started with me. Yeah.
Yeah. Or just creative people. Like I said, it's very hard to go after your dreams when you got a lot of people around you that haven't taken upon themselves to go after their dream. So, you know that
Right.
saying, crabs try and keep you in the bucket with them as
Oh,
opposed
yeah.
to, surrounding yourself. And that's why I really am really conscious about who I surround myself around and the people I try and take advice from and listen to, because I know how hard it is when you have a lot of people around you that just don't understand what you're trying to do and aren't encouraging and helping to inspire you to keep going despite the things that you're going to go through,
Oh, yeah.
to
Yeah.
achieve
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, there is never a shortage of naysayers. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Never a shortage of naysayers.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
that's just the way it is.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And again, everybody just jumping in. We've been having an amazing conversation with my friend Kevin, talking about all things comics, all things film, and just his career. Um, and I want to make sure that I show a little bit of what you're been doing and working on. Like I said, he did start his uh, Darkstorm Comics Studios, which I do love. What was your kind of inspiration for the character? I mean,
Oh well.
because and it's funny because, like I said, I think what oh man, and it just slipped my mind right off the bat. Uh, the comic book, they were really the only black comic book creators that I saw. Dwayne McDuffie started it, and
Yeah, 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 yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah. Milestone.
Milestone. You really didn't see, like I said, worlds that had characters that, like I said, looked like you, kind of reflected, you. What was kind of your inspiration for some of the ideas and characters that you wanted to create?
Well, it was just that. I didn't see, a lot of powerful black male superheroes. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So Darkstorm was my character that spoke to me in that fashion. You know, just ex-military, character who's always tried to do the right thing and had a profound sense of heroism, but who didn't like the way the current superhero community were being lauded,
yeah,
while the military, they're really the ones who are courageous, brave, putting their lives on the line, bleeding for the country, and to a larger extent, the world sometimes, but it's thankless.
yeah,
Uh, and he really has grown to dislike them until he becomes one himself. And now he's in this dilemma, you know, did they have a point? How do you help the world without interfering with the natural course of things? But then again, certain things need to be taken care of,
yeah,
you know, and without the pressures of politics, and things like that. So I really like this character, and the fact that he is suffering as a military man from PTSD,
yeah,
really helps open him up, as far as that human vulnerability, and allows us to have, a reason to sympathize and even
yeah,
empathize with him.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Now, amazing character. Um, Another great character. Do you do you think it is or isn't possible um, that companies like, well, the big two, Marvel, DC, are gonna pick up like or take a shot on a new character, or are they just solely focused on the bank of characters that they've already got? And for creators like you, it's either going to be an independent studio or independent company such as Darkstorm Comics to really push it.
It's hard to say because, I do think they have taken chances on occasions. I think the real problem is that we're not in the room
Yeah,
when it comes to some of these decisions about characters who look like us. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
And the truth of the matter is, it doesn't have to be like that. If you look at, all, or if not most, if not all of the black characters that we've known and loved over the years,
yeah,
you know, none of them were created
yeah,
by brothers. They were all
yeah,
created by white guys, and and they did a good job. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
yeah,
I love the Black Panther, created by Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. Um, Falcon, created by Stan Lee
yeah,
and Gene Colan. Luke Cage, created by
yeah. I love
you know
Luke Cage.
Roy Thomas and Archie Goodwin and Billy Graham. It's like they weren't created by us. But there was still a sense of them trying to be as authentic as they can.
Yeah,
Nowadays, I think a lot of these creators who aren't black are just pandering and slapping a black face on a white character and
yeah,
saying, "Here you go."
yeah,
And it's like, no, you took no, you know, um, care with this character like they did yesteryear. And I really think it has to do with culture. And that's not to say, like I said, I don't want to say that only black should write black characters. That would be foolish. That means that I'll never get a chance to write the Hulk.
yeah,
You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? Or Superman, or pick your characters. So we
yeah,
can't have it both ways.
yeah,
The thing is that I still think if you try to target your characters, and I'm talking about Marvel and DC here, to a black audience or whoever your target audience is, maybe include them in the conversation so you're not asking questions willy nilly and putting something subpar out there
yeah,
that we are not going to like.
yeah. But when you're writing from, um, or when you're asked to write, say, like for the Hulk, or these ones that we've known, you know, for ages and are white characters, but you as a black writer, are you thinking about how the character interacts from in a black situation or a perspective, or
Not at all. What you do is the character has already been created before you got there.
yeah,
So you don't write the character from based upon what you want them to be. You write the character based on who they are already. And you just embellish it with your own story ideas. That's all. But
well, I
your
mean,
job as a writer,
as far as say, or from the story perspective, have you thought about how that character would say, you know, I don't know, be like Batman or any other character coming from I guess a black perspective. Not that you're changing the character, but how you may perceive that character would react or not react in a um, black
yeah,
in a
I see what you're getting at.
yeah
And my answer,
situation. You
yeah,
know,
I see what you mean, and I would tell you not at all. Now, having said that, I know there are some stories where brothers have done that. Like I think there was a Batman story written about 30 years ago
Yeah.
where Batman appears in a black neighborhood, in the ghettos of Gotham City, right?
Yeah.
And brothers aren't afraid of him. They're like, "Who's this fool?" You know what I'm saying? With the bat ears and whatnot. And Christopher Priest being black, he was making a comment is that we're not going to be afraid of the same things
Yeah.
in the same way. Now, you can argue whether or not that was fair because, these characters were created in a certain environment
Yeah.
to behave in a certain way within that fictional environment.
Yeah.
So when you bring in something realistic into the mix, I mean, that's kind of cheating, but it's like, but
Or
okay,
does it go along with, say, like Spider-Man's Miles Morales,
yeah,
where he's actually a black and Latino character, so obviously his diaspora is going to be within that in the things that he's dealing with, and
of course, okay, true, but once again, the guy who created him
yeah,
isn't black or isn't Latino. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
And he created a good story and a good character, but he didn't really get into the race per se because it wasn't really about that. That was just window dressing. Now maybe other people later, who came later, writers, I'm saying,
yeah,
or maybe editors, were like, okay, well, now let's add a little bit of flavor. You know, what
yeah,
is it like being, black and Latino? You can have a story about that, or what's it like being a black and Latino
yeah,
superhero. But then you have another issue. Is that why people buy the comic? Because that's getting into real world
yeah,
conversations that when you're spending, $5 for a comic book, is that what you want to read? I don't know. I really don't know. That's not what I want to read.
yeah. Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
definitely get you for sure. So where do you, like I said, kind of see the industry kind of going? Like I said, now, like you were saying earlier, people are kind of jaded and used to those big Marvel kind of superhero movies and things like that. Where do you see, as far as the industry of comics and the industry of making films about those comics kind of going? Do you see more movies, like more formulaic movies like that, or are you starting to see, or more encouraged about seeing more original kind of stories and characters within that
I
space?
think that if you're not working for Marvel or DC, I think you're going to see um, writers create characters um, that are more independent in nature. Um, I think that crowdfunding would be a way to go in terms of comics
Yeah,
and getting a larger studio to buy into what you're doing. That's going to work, you know. Um, I don't think the big blockbuster superhero movie is over by any stretch of the imagination.
hmm,
It could be that they make less, like Bob Iger suggested, or they could double down, and create even more. I mean, you have to understand that if you look at the tenets of corporatization, they are always trying to do one thing above all else: make money.
yeah.
That's it, make money. And you
Bottom
can't
line.
necessarily, exactly, and you can't make money with old product.
Yeah,
So you need what? You need new product.
yeah,
So on one hand, they're saying that we're creating too much. On the other hand, you better create more so we
yeah,
can find another audience or a better audience or a different audience.
Yeah.
That's what they're going to do. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like a catch 22, you know,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, do you feel like people now are craving that difference? Because I've had, like I said, it seems like, and I've had uh, a vast number of African creators, animators, artists started to, in the industry seems like they're really growing over there. Modo just got released off Disney Plus. Do you feel like people at this time are craving just different stuff? They're tired of the same old kind of characters and stories.
Hey, you know what? The one of the things that you see is that audiences will often say one thing and do another. So
Yeah,
they can say, "Well, we want something different," but then you give them something different and they want the old thing. You know what
yeah,
I'm saying? Um, so I think it's just it falls along the tenets of just creating, just tell good stories.
yeah,
And if you tell enough good stories, the audience will come and you'll build the audience you want. You know
yeah,
what I'm saying? I don't always think you can be strategic or scientific in terms of getting this new audience because you have to have your own personal philosophy
yeah,
yourself in terms of, well, what do you want to say? You know, if
yeah,
you have something to say, then say it. You'll find your audience eventually. You know,
yeah,
and that's why I think the way comics were done, in yesteryear, that they were all about the moral of the story. They were all about heroism.
yeah,
You know, um, things like that. Those are things that are or should be immutable
yeah,
in terms of adventure stories. And that's how you pull audiences in. You
yeah,
know.
yeah. So when you sit down to write and sit down to create something, what is your kind of, I guess, starting point? Where are you when you sit down to create? Do you have to have kind of a framework like with Underworld where they say, "Oh, I want to," I'm thinking of werewolves, but then you kind of riff and grow from that, or when you sit down and don't have kind of a framework, what are the kind of stories and ideas that you're looking to kind of put out there?
Well, one of the things I say is that, first off, it comes down to, do I have something to say?
Yeah,
And if I have something to say, how am I going to say it? You know, and that's usually based upon, how you are principled and what you believe in, things of that nature. Um, I also think in another kind of sense, uh, like a lot of people have told me they come up with a character first, and then build around that. Well, that's not what I do. I come up with a concept first, a log line, and an environment, and I insert a character within that environment, and that have that character react to the things
yeah,
that he or she finds within that environment, and that's how I tend to do it in a sense, you know.
got you, got you, got you. Again, like I said, we've been having everybody just jumping in, catching this on the replay or what. We've been having an amazing conversation, like I said, with my friend Kevin here. And I always say these episodes go way longer than I intended here. So we're gonna bring this train into the station here. Kevin, I want, like I said, this has been such a fun conversation. Trust me, I didn't get deep into a lot of the questions I wanted to, and just sitting down talking with you. But I am trying to be. I know I have to be respectful of what your time and what you're doing, and definitely looking forward to getting you back on the show, brother. Hopefully, it won't be quite as long as this first time. But hey, I guess I like to say I am persistently patient with people. But the final thing is, what advice would you give to somebody that is looking to kind of do what you do, and especially somebody that looks like you? What advice would you give looking to come into this space and industry?
I would just say have a clear idea of what you want to do. And, once you put your hand, on that stick shift, don't let it go. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Um, don't give up, don't let it go, and keep forging ahead, ahead. And that doesn't mean things are going to be easy. Oftentimes you're going to want to quit, but that's when you can't quit, you know. And if you quit, that means you didn't want it in the first place,
yeah,
and you didn't deserve it. Not that we deserve anything, to be
yeah,
honest with you, but I would just say don't give up and keep moving forward, and
yeah,
you'll find your way.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And you know how I like to do it on every great piece of advice. Drop a bomb on a great piece of advice there, for sure. Because I'm a big proponent of you can create your own reality. It's just, are you willing to put in the work to make that reality real?
Yes.
For sure. Again, Kevin, this has been such an amazing conversation, and again, I can't. I would say thank you for just connecting with me in the first place, but thank you for being a part of the Color of Motion family, coming on, sharing your vast experience and knowledge. Like I said, I didn't even scratch the surface of a lot of what we could talk about, for sure. But make sure that you connect with Kevin. Check out check out his work for sure. Let me make sure I get this up here. Make sure you connect with him. Facebook, he's on Facebook. Both his Instagram pages, Darkstorm Comics, Kevin Grevioux. You can find him there. You can connect with him on Twitter. He is very active on social media. I know I'm always reading his posts and commenting and following what he's saying. So definitely make sure that you connect with him. All this information will be on the show notes on the YouTube page. So make sure that you go over there, check it out for sure. Again, Kevin, thank you so much for gracing the Color of Motion with your presence. You're always welcome on the show. Anything that you or Darkstorm Comics is working on that you're wanting to promote. Like I said, I'm about building community and really building a friendship. Like I told you, that goes beyond you being
Oh yeah, for
on the
sure.
show.
Yeah,
So
for sure. Well, I'm glad you invited me. I just want to let your audience know that I'll be doing a lot of independent comics that are going to be crowdfunded through Kickstarter. So, always look for more information about what I'm working on, about what I'm crowdfunding,
yep,
on my social media, via Twitter, Threads, Instagram, Facebook, also my company website, which is darkstormcomics.com.
yep.
Visit us often and you'll see some interesting and cool stuff.
Yep, he's got a lot of things in the hopper for sure. And like I said, just super excited to promote what you're doing as things come out, for sure. And like I said, it's been such an honor and such a pleasure having you on the show. If you could hang out for just 1 second while I
Yeah.
close out the show, I would appreciate it. But everybody, again, make sure you hop on over to the YouTube page, connect with him. You'll find all the links there. But help me thank again Kevin Grevioux for coming on and gracing us with his presence there. Kevin, hang out for just 1 second, and cause I want to talk to you for just 1 second while I close out the show. Everybody, like I said, this has been a show that I've been looking forward to for, like I said, such a long time, and I'm just so thankful that finally got a chance to get him on the show and have him be a part of the Color of Motion family. I know you enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed bringing it to you. This has been a blast for sure. You know, like I said, I always enjoy just bringing this to all my viewers. Next week is going to be no exception for sure. We got another great guest coming on, and I definitely don't want you to miss out on that as well. Join us next week as we welcome my friend Sarah Umar. She's production assistant and screenwriter with Titmouse Animation. So you definitely don't want to miss out on that. This is going to be another great episode. Man, you know, I'm always so thankful of my viewers. I'm definitely thankful of my friends that come on the show. I always tell them that I don't like calling them guests. I really do like calling them friends because I really do work hard at just building friendships. They make the show what it is. They inspire me to continue doing the show. You inspire me to continue doing the show. And like I said, as long as I'm having a ball doing it, you know I'm going to be here each and every Saturday to bring it to you. So with that, like I said, I will see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Have a great weekend, everybody. Cheers.